minutes to allow people to log in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, well, let's go ahead and get going. Looks like a couple more people have logged in. Anyone that decides to hop on afterwards, we'll just have them go back to watching the video, or we'll catch them up after this. So first of all, thank you all for joining us today. This is a recorded session, mainly for the purposes of we'll load it back onto the website like we've done on a previous couple of previous sessions. So that way it's available to the public to be able to review and listen to what we're going to talk about today. All right, so today we are discussing the Willamette water supply water treatment plant. Specifically, we're going to be talking about Division 26 electrical, which encompasses medium voltage, high voltage, and low voltage electrical, security, as well as SCADA and controls. Kind of just a housekeeping thing before we get going. Please ensure that your line is muted and you turn off video feed just to help preserve bandwidth so we don't have any lagging issues. All right, so first of all, introductions. Myself, I am Michael Nair, the project manager, one of the project managers for Sundt on the project. And David Fagerstrom, who's my boss, he is unable to attend today due to a conflicting meeting. And then online as well with us is Jared Wagner. He is another project manager for Sundt. And then for the Willamette water supply program, Matthew Gribbins is the project manager for the client. He is also unable to attend today due to a conflicting meeting. We wanted to post our contact information on here so that way you all could be able to reference that at any point in the future if you have any questions regarding the project or the scope of work. One thing we do ask is that you in the chat box or send us an email, just send us your contact information, just that way make sure that you get invited to correspondence regarding the project, as well as we'll add your contact information to SmartBid, which is the estimating software that we utilize, and we'll send out all the bid documents through SmartBid. So please ensure that you guys get us your contact information either through the chat box or through a direct email. All right, so first of all, talk about Sundt. We are somewhat new to the Portland Northwest. We've been doing work on and off for the past 50, 60 years up in the Northwest. But the last project we did in Portland, large project, was the Selwood Bridge rebuild and moving of that bridge that was done about 5-6 years ago now. And then we also have another few large projects in town right now that we're working on. Sundt is headquartered in Tempe, Arizona, but as you can see here on the map, that we do work all over the Western United States, as well as we've done work in all the most of the 50 lower states, and we've done work in Alaska previously. We were founded in 1890 and we are 100% employee owned. So kind of a unique thing about Sundt is that most of ESOP companies, the employee ownership ends at the administrative level, so project managers, PEs, and above. Our employee ownership actually goes down to our trade folk that work for us. So we do self-perform some scopes of work, and our field hands are also employee owners. So the agenda for today, we're going to start off with a safety share. That's a key a keystone for our company and who we are. Is we take very high pride in our safety, and we want to make sure that we always start every meeting with safety. Then we'll go through a quick project overview, review the project schedule, talk about some the bid schedule, as well as some of the documents that you'll see when the project goes out to bid. These are typically we're not going to go in extreme depth on these. We'll have a pre-construction kickoff meeting once the documents go out to bid, but this kind of gives you a high-level overview of what will be sent out to everybody. And then we'll also talk about some seismic design requirements and delegated design regarding the project. We'll talk in depth regarding Division 26, and then open up for any questions that you all may have. So safety share we want to talk about is innovative PPE. Sundt is always trying to stay at the leading edge when it comes to use of technology in the field, especially when it comes to managing field operations. But that also extends into personal protective equipment. We are, through analysis that we've done either internally with our company as well as through industry peers. We've kind of highlighted that an issue that recurring throughout the industry is when individuals fall from a height, they tend to have head injuries. And really doing some analysis on it is during the fall, we're finding is that the hard hat tends to fall off, which then exposes the head to a concussion injury. So Sundt is mandating for our own craft and our administrative staff is that we now have to implement chin straps. So they're in the picture here. Kind of three different hard hats. The two on the right are more your traditional style. Those we are could be purchasing aftermarket attachments for these type of hard hats to be able to provide a chin strap. And then on the left hand side there is kind of where the new and up and coming trend is for hard hats throughout the industry. And some of you may have already been on projects that require this, but they're more of a kind of a rock climber style hard hat that comes with attachments that connect right to the hard hat. These eliminate the sun visor brim, but they're a little bit more compact. They're much more comfortable than your standard harness that most of the older style hard hats are. But with this, it comes with the integral chin strap, so it helps prevent the issue of a hard hat falling off during a fall. Another item too with hard hats is when individuals are working at a height and they don't have a chin strap, a strong wind comes through, or just the person, the hard hat's not tight to their head, and the hard hat falls off. And now that hard hat now becomes an issue of it falling and hitting somebody. Depending on the height, it could result in a severe injury. So, again, that's why we're kind of requiring that all Sundt personnel are going to be utilizing chin straps moving forward. So just kind of a safety share with you all, maybe something that your firms are also looking at or possibly unaware of, that the industry is starting to trend this way. So we believe of getting ahead of the ball ahead of the 8 ball instead of behind it. All right, so project overview. So this is, first of all, I'm going to want to talk about kind of a very high macro level of the entirety of the program that the owner is implementing here. So the owner is the Willamette Water Supply Commission, and that is a a conglomerate of the Tualatin Valley Water District, the City of Hillsborough, and the City of Beaverton. They've come together and have designed a new water distribution system throughout the western portion of the greater Portland area. Right now, the total value of this overall program is about $1.3 billion, including in that in this overall program is a raw water facility down at the Wilsonville, down in Wilsonville at the Willamette River. That pulls water out of the Willamette River and pumps it upstream or up the pipe to the water treatment plant, which is what we're talking about today. The arrow kind of indicates rough location of where it is at in Sherwood. From there, the water treatment plant will then pump it throughout the rest of the distribution center to the final end users. So today we're simply focusing on the water treatment plant. This project is a CMGC delivery method. Sundt was interviewed and was chosen by the commission to be involved in the early upfront design efforts and cost modeling efforts on this project, and then we'll transition into the GC as we move forward into construction. So kind of zooming in a little bit closer, the red box indicated here on the map is the approximate location of where the new plant is going to be. It is located about half a mile south of the Tualatin-Sherwood Road and 124th intersection. This site was specifically chosen because this plant is being designed to be seismically resilient to withstand a major seismic event. So, you know, what makes this location so unique is that it is a knob of basalt granite bedrock that's underneath all the forest there, that we're going to expose that bedrock and basically construct right on top of the bedrock. So it gives it a nice firm foundation for this plant to be able to be built upon. So just kind of a note to everybody is that from the civil investigations that we've done on site, blasting is going to be required for almost all excavations. So we just want to let everyone note that. This current site is a greenfield site. It is heavily forested, so one of the first things we'll have to do is get on site is clear and grub approximately 20 acres of the forest and basically make ready. A lot of drill and blasting has to happen on the civil side of things to be able to get to the point that that structures can be built. The primary AHJs or authorities having jurisdiction on the project and is the Oregon DEQ, Washington County, City of Sherwood, and the Tualatin Valley Fire Department. There are a few other AHJs that do have some responsibility, but those are the primary players. And then this is kind of where the plant sits right along 124th here and kind of out into the forest. So this is kind of the project itself. So I mentioned earlier, the plant sits on approximately 20 to 23 acres. There are multiple treatment areas involved on the project. It includes a 15,000 square foot Class A office building, which is the administration building. Inside the admin building are administrative offices, a laboratory, meeting rooms, the SCADA control room, as well as the showers and restrooms and locker rooms for the staff. The project consists of approximately about 40,000 cubic yards of concrete, which about 33,000 of that is structural concrete. The other 7,000 is more site-related concrete, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, etc. Approximate earthwork quantities, there's 65,000 yards of cut and fill just to level the site, and then an additional 180,000 cubic yards of structural excavation, and then approximately 120,000 yards of concrete pipe excavation. So again, just all of that would have to be drilled, blasted, and removed, and then that rock crushed and put back in as backfill. There's approximately $20 million of process equipment. Sundt will be directly purchasing the process equipment, and we'll be turning it over to the process subcontractor for installation and startup. There's a 10 million gallon pre-stressed concrete reservoir, which on the picture here is that large circular structure in the northeast corner of the plant. There are multiple pre-engineered metal buildings on site, and then there are also, just kind of want to highlight, there's multiple building trade opportunities. This is a unique project where, you know, most standard projects are you have individual structures for each process that the water goes through, and here it's more of a conglomerate where we've combined multiple processes into a single structure that allows it to be able to be a little bit more efficient, cut down on costs, as well as because of that, you know, you do have some unique features where you have to put in the firewalls and stuff like that in between the different process areas. So that's why we want to indicate to everyone that there are multiple building trade type opportunities. So framing and drywall, aesthetic type of architectural opportunities. So zooming into the main process building. So this is the one building that basically it's about 7 different areas that are combined into one large structure. So starting in the bottom left-hand corner here, area 8, which is the administration building. That's one I talked about earlier. But there is some very high-end finishes. I shouldn't say very high. There's high-end finishes in there, Class A office building level finishes in there. As well as pretty extensive HVAC system and lighting control system in there. On the roof of the administration building, there is a design build portion of photovoltaic panels, which is going to be included in the electrical scope of work. Moving over to area 22, which is the ballast and flocculation. This is the first process that the water coming onto site will go into. There in the ballast and floc is where they add polymers into the flow, which polymers essentially make things clump together. So it helps take solids, suspended solids, out of the water. And once it goes through the ballast and floc, it goes over into the ozone generation and contactor facility, which is area 26 and 25. Those structures there, they create ozone by the use of liquid oxygen and gaseous oxygen and turning it into ozone, and then injecting that ozone air into the contactors for part of the process of disinfection, and as well as reducing biological matter. And then the flow goes over into the filters. These are GAC filters, granular activated carbon filters. And so go through a filter bed, and then that liquid would go into the area 30, which is the UV disinfection and maintenance structure. And then that's where the liquid would be subjected to UV light as it passes through the UV equipment, and then from there it'll go over to the finished water clear well and the pump station. So basically, through this whole process, this structure here basically takes all the liquids and separates out any of the solids. It sends the solids over to the solid structures, but then by the time it comes out of this building, it's essentially drinkable water. The next area, so the water will come out of that main process building and will come over to these couple structures here. The clear well, like I said earlier, is a 10 million gallon tank where the clean water will go into and will basically waits to be sent out to the public. And then we also have the equalization and overflow structure. This basically allows for flexibility within the system to be able to hold approximately 2 million gallons of water. That's if needed, to be able to ensure that that there's capacity within the system. If the clear well is too full, or if there happens to be maintenance somewhere upstream of the pipe system, then they could be able to utilize this for additional storage capacity. There's a small equipment storage building. That's basically just a pre-engineered metal structure that's really just meant to be able to house the owner's equipment and maintenance of that equipment. Then there's the finished water pump station. The finished water pump station is basically that pumps. That's what takes the water out of the clear well and then pumps it upstream to the end users. And then last but not least is the solids handling structures. So all of the solids that are pulled out through all the processes get sent over into these two round tanks, which are the thickeners. This is where the solids are then allowed to settle out, get pulled into the thickened sludge holding tank, and then from there get sent to the solids dewatering. The dewatering is basically where they squeeze any remaining liquid and moisture out of any of the solids, and the solids basically just fall into a truck bed or a dumpster, and any liquids that are pulled out through this process then go back to the head at the beginning of the plant and get ran through all the systems again. All right, project schedule. So this is kind of a very high level 10,000 foot view of the project. We do have a detailed P6 schedule that will be distributed out with the bid documents, so that way everyone will have those for review. We're specifically talking about electrical and INC today. We anticipate that electrical will be starting in July with temporary electrical systems being installed, and that scope will go all the way out through fourth quarter of 2024. Milestones for the project is that we need to have the plant up and operational by the end of March 2025. All right, bid schedule. So if you have you probably received some information previously that we were reflecting that we had 3 GMPs. The owner, Sundt, have recently elected to combine 2 of the GMPs into a single effort, which is now we're now just considering GMP 1. So GMP 1 is essentially 90 to 95% of all scopes of work on the job, so that which includes electrical. So we're expecting that that the bid will be advertising on Friday, September 24th, with bids due on November 4th. We'll have we'll plan on having a pre-bid kickoff meeting on October 6th, RFI deadline of October 21st, and an addenda deadline of October 29th. And then we will have a GMP2, which is later in 2023, and that's really just landscaping, some final touches on the project. But like I said, majority, 90% of the entire project is going to be bid out in GMP1. Project delivery. So, as I mentioned earlier, Sundt was hired as the CMGC. And part of this process is we owe to the owner is a guaranteed maximum price, which essentially is our commitment to the owner that we're providing them a ceiling that the cost is not going to go above X dollars. And included inside of that GMP would be prices from all the subcontractors. All of the subcontractor work categories will be a lump sum contract method. So it's not going to be a cost plus or an open book style contract method. This will all be a lump sum method. There are 70 plus work category packages that are spread out over the 2 GMPs. Every work category package will have a very defined scope of work. So we're spending a lot of time developing these scope of works that basically give the parameters of what we want you to bid. Most work category packages will be a low bid, best responsive. And what that means is, on bid day, we'll get the bids from you all. And then we will go through an abstracting process, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then some of the work category packages are best value with qualifications, and specifically this the electrical portion it falls into the best value with qualifications, because the electrical is and controls portion is a paramount scope of work that is critical to the functionality of this plant. And so we want to make sure that that the individuals or companies that are pursuing this job have a clear understanding of what's being asked of them, and have a clear understanding of how to do water wastewater work. So estimated cost. So as I mentioned earlier, that Sundt has been involved help doing some cost estimating for the client to help kind of figure out a ballpark of where we're heading towards. The electrical scope of work right now is about in the high 30s, about 37 to $40 million range of the overall contract. Instructions to bidders, exhibits, and attachments. So this, I'm going to go through a couple items here where this is what you should be expecting when all the documents come out. This is what's going to be delivered to you. So first thing is going to be the invitation instructions to bidders. So this will basically walk you through all the documents, what is expected of you, laying out the exact milestones, deliverable dates, and everything like that, as well as giving you contact info of which estimator on Sundt's side is managing your direct package. And actually, we have a gentleman online today with us, is Tanner Haro. Tanner will be the estimator for the entirety of the electrical package. So if you need to get a hold of him, Tanner, can you make sure you put your contact info in the chat? Appreciate it. We'll also provide detailed scopes of work, which is what I talked about earlier. You know, really it defines what the inclusions and exclusions will be of your scope of work. We'll provide a bid form, which is a, you know, be able to provide consistency across all the bidders. We're providing a bid form that we ask that everyone utilize to fill out, so not just dollar values, but also making sure that, you know, giving a testament that's saying that, you know, you've read through the documents, you understand what's being asked of you, as well as other pertinent information. We'll have the exhibits and attachments, and I'll have a slide on that here in a little bit that I'll go over. The construction schedule, as I mentioned earlier, a detailed P6 schedule, all of the drawings and specifications, geotechnical reports, and other supplemental information, such as site logistics and laydown plans, excavation and stockpile plans, etc. So the instructions to bidders, you know, kind of talked about this earlier, but this really just goes down a little bit deeper into what's included in instructions to bidders. You know, the owner and design team have gone through a lot of effort to go through the specs and determining, you know, what type of products that they're looking for. So one of the key items on this is, you know, writing out a prescriptive way to be able to call out substitution. So if there's something that you're wanting to do as an or equal, we need to know that upfront to be able to take that into consideration. And also, you know, bidding requirements, as I mentioned earlier, the subcontractor pre-qualification packet steps. So Sundt is requiring that everyone goes through a pre-qualification. It's a really simple process that we have. That's just it's an online system to verify that you have the, you know, the bonding capacity to be able to handle this type of job, and that you know, that you're not a high risk company. So that's just kind of some things we go through, you know, looking for EMR type information and stuff. Project requirements and procedures, really going through the, you know, the statement of work, submittals, schedules, project closeout information, WIFIA requirements. So what WIFIA is a federal program that provides funding for water and wastewater projects. So part of WIFIA requirements is that one is that we have to follow Davis-Bacon. So Davis-Bacon wages, this project it does not have a CBA or a collective bargaining agreement or anything like that, but we are going to be held to Davis-Bacon wages as well as prevailing wages, Oregon prevailing wage. So it's really whatever one has the higher wage rate is what we will be held to. So if Davis-Bacon has a higher wage rate than prevailing wage for an electrician, we have to pay a minimum of what Davis-Bacon says. Doesn't mean you can't pay above that, but that's the bare minimum what you can be able to, what you have to pay for that position. As well as with WIFIA, is we have the AIS requirements, which is American steel. Essentially, it's very similar to Buy American, a little bit different requirements, but fairly similar to Buy American, which has been out for 15, 20 years. And then also warranty information. Then we'll go through insurance requirements and the bidding documents. Exhibits and attachments. So this is kind of a list of all of the exhibits and attachments that will be sent out. It's a lot of information, but it's there for a purpose and a reason to provide as much clear communication to you all to be able to bid the project accordingly. One thing to note here is the attachments. So which is the bid alternates matrix, a scope bid form, and sample forms of our contracts. So either a purchase order or subcontract is included there for your review. But all of the exhibits will be included in the contract upon evaluation, upon a contract award. So those will be attachments to the contract. So we just want to be clear with everyone. And if you're interested to go through a little bit more in depth in those exhibits, you can be able to go back onto the Our Reliable website and go back to the very first training session that we went through, the public outreach session. In there, we went through pretty in depth of each of these exhibits and what's included in it. But also at the kickoff meeting, we'll go through and spend quite a bit of time on what these are. All right, best value submission, evaluation, grading, and selection. So I'm going to turn it over to Jared, and he'll kind of walk you all through what's going to be required.
All right, thanks, Mike. So as Mike mentioned before, the electrical package is going to be a best value selection method. There's a couple other best value selections on the project. Those are ones that Sundt is intending on submitting a bid for. To be clear, Sundt is not intending on submitting a bid for any of the electrical work, to self-perform any electrical work, but the other self-perform packages that Sundt is submitting on are best value. So to help ensure the integrity of the bidding process, all of those best value package bids are going to be sent directly to the owner, so not through Sundt. So the owner is going to receive the bids for any best value packages. The instructions for how to provide those are going to be inside the bid documents, instructions to bidders, as well as the bid form. It's going to be a one-step process for the best value package. It's going to have a qualification section as well as a cost submission. The owner is going to receive those bids, open it privately, and then record the bid results. So the qualification section of that best value proposal, the whole purpose of it is to make sure that the subcontractors that are being selected on the project are going to be capable of performing the work, that you have experience and the resume and the resources in order to complete the work. So we just want to make sure that we're getting the right set of folks in there for the higher quality, higher risk, and higher schedule requirements for the project. Knowing that the proposal is sometimes can be difficult to pull together and sometimes costly, we're trying to keep that qualifications portion of the proposal limited to 15 pages. So we're not going to pour a whole bunch of effort into doing a 100-page submittal for qualification. So max of 15 pages, and that would not include like the resumes for the personnel. The qualification submittal inside that 15 pages. The sections that we want to see are some general information about your company and the experience of your company. Talk a little bit about the personnel, talk a little bit about your approach of how you'd go about doing the work, talk about how you'd approach the work from a safety perspective. We want to get a couple of your safety records, your EMR, experience modification ratio, total recordable incident ratio, and lost time accidents. Take a look at that, and then any references, 3 project references of equivalent projects. On the cost portion of the best value selection, Sundt has prepared some bid forms for each scope of work, including the Division 26 work. So the cost portion of the proposal must be submitted on the Sundt provided bid forms. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to do a side-by-side comparison of everybody's bid that bid on the same set of work and see if anything was missed. And if anything was missed, make sure that that work is going to be covered. And by putting a plug in it or any gaps that are plugged in. We call that process abstracting. Some folks call it leveling. But the intent of the exercise is to ensure that everyone is being compared apples to apples. So whatever bid you submit, it's being compared fairly against everybody else's bid. Once that abstracting process is complete, then Sundt and the owner are going to get together, review those abstracted processes, review and validate any of the plugs that went into that abstracting process, and really do a QC check on it to make sure that everybody's in agreement that what we have there is a fair comparison between all of the bidders before we make the point distribution for costing. When we do get to the grading and selection portion of it, so the whole qualifications and cost, all of that together is going to be evaluated on a 1,000-point system. The exact breakdown based on scope of work and best value selection is going to be provided in the bid documents. There's a set of instructions for each best value package that lays out what that grading system is going to be. Before the owner and Sundt make a decision, there is an option in there to hold interviews with the firms if we need additional clarification on anything in the proposal, or if it's real close, then there's an option to hold interviews between the firms. The grading system is going to have a couple different sections to it. For the qualifications, of course, we talked about the abstracted pricing and those other elements that we mentioned before: general information about the firm, experience, quals, your approach, safety, and references. If you have any questions on how the best value process is going to be conducted, or you have any concerns, you're welcome to reach out to Sundt's team, Dave, Mike, or myself. If you want to reach out to somebody from the program side, Matt Grivens, project manager, his contact information is right there. You're welcome to reach out to him as well if you've got concerns about how we're conducting the best value bidding process. And with that, we'll go back to seismic. Mike?
All right, thank you, Jared. All right, so seismic design. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, the premise of this whole not just this plant, but this entirety of this program is to be able to create a seismically resilient system that, in the event of an earthquake, that it's going to be able to be up and operational in a very short period, like 24 hours of the event, and be able to provide clean water to the end users. So because of that, obviously there's very strict and very prescriptive seismic performance requirements, which electrical does have quite a few components that do fall into the spec. So we have a spec which is 018829, which talks about seismic performance requirements, and it's very prescriptive, exactly, you know, what needs to be done, and how to do it. So in this spec, there's a list of different products or situations, so such as, you know, either pipe hangers or conduit hangers, you know, equipment supports and stuff like that have to go through be able to qualify that it's able to be seismic resilient. So how do you qualify something? Basically, there's three methods. So through analysis, which is basically through engineering calculations on paper. Through testing, so there's some, you know, equipment, skidded equipment that necessarily can't be engineered through design to be able to prove that it can be seismically resilient. So you have to then test it out. So they put it on a shake table, and we'll shake the equipment and be able to determine if anything fails. And then also through experience, and what that means is, has the piece of equipment or the material or the device, has it been through a recent seismic event of a certain magnitude? And if it's survived that, then that falls within that has experience of being able to meet the seismic performance requirements. And then it also goes through that, you know, you can kind of do a combination of the three, and the spec is very prescriptive of what that consists of. So I just want to make you all aware of that. It is something a little bit above and beyond what a lot of projects require, but there's a reason for it, and it's because the whole basis of this project and this program is seismic resilience of the system. And I'll hand it back over to Jared for delegated design requirements.
All right, thanks, Mike. So there's a couple delegated design requirements on the project as well. A number of those are what Mike was referencing in the seismic design that the seismic design requirements are also delegated design. So for anything that's been designated in the specifications or drawings as a delegated design, those are to be design build systems. They need to be stamped and sealed by a professional engineer in the state of Oregon. There's a list of delegated design items, like I said, in the specs and drawings. To summarize or abbreviate that list for your purposes, I prepared this list here. One item that I missed as we were going through it and I was listening to Mike talk is the photovoltaic systems belongs on this list here as well. But from this list, the temporary electrical and lighting systems, we'll talk about that here in a second. Related to the seismic, we've got the hangers and supports for the electrical system and the seismic controls for those electrical systems. And then fairly typically, arc flash study, addressable fire alarm system, those are both fairly typical, I think, for electrical contracts of this type. And then there's some anchorage delegated design items on lighting poles and LED exterior lighting that are also designated as delegated to design. All right, let's talk a little bit about the scope of work. Let's dive into Division 26. So from the statement of work summary, I consolidated or I abbreviated the list of items, and these are some of the highlights from that. So Division 26 is going to include both the Division 26, 27, and 28 electrical CSIs. So with that, we're going to have we're going to have the temporary site electrical and lighting. I'll show you a sheet on that here in a second. For the electrical communications and security systems, we have been talking to a SCADA subcontractor, that's SMB. They've been pre-selected by the owner, and we'll have the electrical subcontractor pick up the scope for working with SMB on that one. And then Mike, can you talk a little bit about the security subcontractor?
Absolutely. So one of the requirements of WIFI, as I mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of requirements for it, but one of them is that the security, there's very specific and strict security that obviously the federal government requires. And part of that is some confidential information regarding the security systems. And because of that uniqueness to it, the client has decided to pre-select a security subcontractor that is going to own procurement and installation of devices. So what you all will need to be able to provide is really more of the conduit infrastructure. So taking it from an electrical room or a security room out to the location of where the device will be. And so we're still working on kind of exactly bridging the gap of where the scope of work is the security firm is going to be providing. The owner's kind of in the midst of choosing and contracting that firm as we speak. But we'll make sure that the scope of work clearly delineates what they're doing versus what's expected of you all.
Thanks, Mike. So within the electrical scope of work, Division 26 statement of work is also going to own the procurement of the electrical equipment. So any of the transformer switch boxes, any of the MCC, that's going to be procured by the electrical subcontractor. Sundt is going to procure the process equipment, so the pumps, mixers, UV reactors, ozone systems. So the Division 26 would own the install of the process equipment, vendor supplied panels. So that would be under your scope as well. The underground duct banks. I think we mentioned before that the site is a very large basalt outcropping. And so for the first couple months of the job, we're going to be doing a lot of blasting to get there. The underground sub will be responsible for blasting the trenches for the duct banks. Division 26 is going to be responsible for the excavation, placing the duct banks, the encasement, and backfill of those. There's the photovoltaic system at the admin building, the design build that we mentioned before, and preliminary final power system study is also part of the Division 26 scope of work.
Yep. All right, so now we're going to kind of go through a little bit more detail of the project. So on the temporary site electrical, we've kind of developed a plan here because this current site, there's really not local utilities to here, so we have to bring all the utilities on the site. So we have a pretty well thought out electrical distribution system for temporary use. What we're going to require is basically of the electricians will have to take what we've developed so far and hire either internally or externally, get engineered stamped documents developed for this, secure any electrical permits that are required, and then installing this system, and then maintenance of the system throughout construction. So right now, we've been working with PGE, and we've done some single line, some one line development. So we've determined that this is going to be a 2,000 amp system. The nearest power source that PGE is going to be able to provide is a 12,000 kV line. So we're going to have to run a 12 kV temporary duct bank, bring it to a primary transformer, and then step it down to 480 and distribute it from there as 480 out to panel boards and switchboards, and then from there distributing out to individual locations. So this temporary system will be utilized for construction power out on the site itself, as well as power down to the trailer yard, which is just off the page. On the bottom of the page is where the trailer yard will be. So we have pretty, like I said, including this document, we also have a one line that's already been developed and stuff like that. So they'll be handed out to the electricians for you all to design and install. Jared, do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. Yeah. So not to disorient everybody, but what I did here was I took the model for the plant on Navisworks and flipped it upside down. So we're looking at the plant from the center of the earth right now. Purpose of this image right here is just to give you an idea of the scale and the distribution of some of the underground duct banks. So bottom right-hand corner is where the power is coming in from PG&E. And then up to the main process area, and then distributing out from the main process building to each one of the auxiliary buildings, the raw water and finished water pump station, EQ basin, and the thickener storage area. Like I mentioned before, it's a basalt area, so the excavation is by Division 26. The blasting is going to be done by the Division 31 folks. So there'll be some rocks to dig out, but ideally no hard rock excavation of that.
Yeah. Yep.
And then at the intersection between the clear well and the main process area, this is probably the most congested area for the underground utilities. What we're seeing in blue, green, and yellow there are some of the process mechanical lines, red representing the electrical stuff. And this is fairly typical as far as once we get into the rest of the building in terms of the complication and the integration between Division 40, Division 33, and the electrical. It is going to require some tight coordination between each one of the subcontractors on the job. There's going to be a BIM coordination requirement for each of the larger subs to make sure that we're integrating their shop drawings and their plan of work in with everybody's else and doing that conflict detection or the clash detection in the model before we fabricate and release any work for fabrication. This right here is one of the PNIDs that we grabbed out of there. So I figured I'd just grab one of the PNIDs to give you an example of what we're looking at on the job. This one in particular is of the ozone destruct system. So to walk you through a little bit of what we're seeing here, inside of the dash boxes is a skid that's being provided. So Sundt is going to procure that skid as an ozone destruct skid from the manufacturer. So everything inside that box area, piping, valves, instrumentation, all that is going to be provided by the skid. Set by the mechanical contractor, and electrical will be the one that will be tying in those contacts and SCADA points in. So at the top of the page, you see the MOPP and the designation for each one of those contacts to which loop it's going to, either a local control panel or the SCADA network.
Yep. So as I mentioned earlier, the owner has already pre-selected the SCADA design company, which is SMB. SMB is doing a fantastic job, really getting ahead of the game and understanding what the requirements are. They will, like I said, they will be doing the computer programming, the SCADA development. The electricians will be responsible for doing, equipment control and equipment instrumentation loop checks and stuff like that, and working with SMB to accomplish those tasks.
And then any of the instrumentation that we're seeing outside of those dash boxes is going to be procured by electrical SOW. So on the left-hand side, I'm seeing a couple AITs, AEs, some pressure transmitters, temperature transmitters that are on the either inlet or outlet side in and out of these skids. So they're not being provided by the manufacturer. They need to be picked up by the electrical SOW and tied in by the electrical SOW.
Yep.
The inline instrumentation, like we're seeing some motor or some inline flow meters, those are procured by electrical. If it's in line with the process mechanical piping, we'll have the process mechanical folks install that inline instrumentation provided by electrical. If it's just a plug-in like something that comes in off of a weldlet, then process mechanical will provide that connection, and electrical SOW would be installing that instrumentation.
Yep. So what we're going to do is one of the things that Tanner and is working diligently on is we're going to take the instrumentation control list and back check it against all the P&IDs and contract documents, and we're going to designate who is procuring and who is installing each instrumentation and control. So that way it's very clear to everyone of who has what responsibility. So is it vendor provided? Is it being provided by electrical? Is electrical installing it? Is it process installing it? Or is it being pre-installed by the manufacturer? So we'll provide a bridging document that illustrates the clear expectations of who is doing what. All right, so that's kind of the end of explanation of the Division 26 scope of work. As I mentioned earlier, on the Our Reliable website, we're keeping that up to date with as we're finding more information, or whenever we complete one of these outreach seminars, we're recording it and uploading it to this website for future referral. So feel free to check back on some of the previous ones. I highly recommend going back to the very first one, which is the GMP1 General Information Meeting, which is where we went through a lot more in depth of all the exhibits and attachments that are going to be included on bid day. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, to Jared, to Tanner Haro, which he put his information in the chat box here, as well as Matt Gribbins with the owner. We want to make sure that you all feel comfortable with the scope of work, and that you all will be successful. So, and with that, I'll open up the discussions or questions. Anybody? Not all at once, please.
This will be made available to everyone on the call.
Yep, we're going to upload it to Our Reliable website probably this afternoon.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your time. And again, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll make sure we get all of your contact information into SmartBid, and then expect that the documents will be officially out to bid on September 24th. Thank you all, and have a great day.